This is Music City Driver again. I'm making quite a few videos today because I'm just thinking of things that I think that a lot of people that are just starting out or want to start out on Uber and or Lyft as a driver might want to know. So I'm basically going to share some tips today, in this video rather, not today, because as I said, I posted several other videos earlier about picking up riders. I think it seems pretty simple, but there's many times where people are not where the pin says they are. You may not be familiar with this yet. If you have not familiarized yourself with the Uber and or the Lyft app yet, I advise that you do before you start driving. It will make it a whole lot easier once you actually start driving. I'm sure there's tons of walkthroughs on YouTube. One of these days, if I figure out how to technologically do it, I might actually be able to broadcast my own screen as I'm doing it. But the number one tip, in my opinion, is to use Waze. Many people swear by Google Maps and they say, oh yeah, Waze is just an overlay. I get markedly different results when I use Waze or when I use Google Maps. Another essential thing is to actually know your city somewhat. Now, I'll admit, Nashville has changed a lot from when I first lived here 20 years ago, roughly. I moved here about 6.5 years ago, and the city is growing like mad. So a lot of landmarks have changed, stuff like that. So if you know your parts of town, it will help you out a lot when you're going to find a rider. One of the most difficult spots, in my opinion, to pick up a rider is on Broadway, followed by probably Division Street, and then DeMunbrian. Those three spots, in my opinion, are the hardest for me to find a passenger to pick up. You get your ping, and one of the things I would advise when you get a ping is to, if you can zoom in on your Uber map or your Lyft map, when you get your ping, it'll show you where the pin is dropped on the screen. So you can actually zoom in using your fingers on your touch screen. You can zoom in really close to the actual place where they dropped the pin. Most of the time that will be close to a bar or a restaurant or another establishment that you can use as a landmark. And that'll give you an idea of what side of the street they're on, and it'll also give you an idea of what business they're in front of. That does help quite a bit. However, depending on weather conditions, depending on what part of town you're in downtown, areas like that can actually throw the pin off, and people don't put an exact address in. If they just drop the pin, then 9 out of 10 times you're actually excuse me, you may be actually off quite a bit. So the second thing I do is when I get close to the location, if it looks like there's a ton of people around, which on Broadway just about every night there's a ton of people around, I would recommend either texting or calling the passenger to ask them what side of the street they're on, especially on Broadway. Broadway can be quite horrible, especially late at night. It tends to be bumper to bumper. There's taxis everywhere. There's other Uber drivers and Lyft drivers all over the place, and there's tons of people just walking around. So most of the time you're going to need to call them, try to get an idea of where they are, see if they need to cross the street maybe, because if they're on the other side of the street, say you're headed east towards the river, they're on the north side of the street where you need to be headed west to pick them up, then it's much easier for them to cross the street because they have the pedestrian scramble, which is they have diagonal crossings and straight across crossings there. It's much easier to get across the street than it is for you to make the loop and turn back around and come back up. It'll take you probably 10 or 15 minutes just to get to the other side of the street from one side of Broadway. So that's the second tip. Like I said, first tip, familiarize yourself with the city. Second tip, and that's actually the Waze recommendation more falls into when you pick the passenger up and you're going to take them to their final destination, because that, in my opinion, is the best app to use. So the first tip is to familiarize yourself with the city. Second tip is when you get your ping, zoom in on the pin where they drop the pin to see about where they are. Third tip is when you get closer, to text and or call. Now, some drivers, and I think it's a little unethical to do this, will basically pull up to where the pin was and set their timer for 5 minutes, because after 5 minutes you can cancel the ride as a no-show and get a cancellation fee. It's $5. It charges the passenger $5. but you really only get $3.75. So think about that for a second. If they're downtown on Broadway, most of the time it's going to pay you more than $3.75 just to go and get them. I don't know. Some people tend to do that quite a lot. They won't call, they won't text, because on Uber you're not required to call or text a passenger before you can cancel. On Lyft you actually have to try to call them. Now if they don't answer, by all means cancel. I've done that on several occasions. I've tried texting, no reply. Texting 2 or 3 times, no reply. Tried calling 2 or 3 times, it goes straight to voicemail. So at that point, you know that you're not going to be able to reach this person. You don't know exactly where they are. You're at their PIN, but they're not there. If that happens, then by all means, after 5 minutes, cancel, no show, charge them the $5. You get $3.75 just to pay for your time sitting there waiting for them, and then you can get another ping. But if there's a reasonable chance of finding them in that 5-minute window, then by all means try if you can. That's just good customer service in my opinion. So, third location third tip, or fourth tip, I guess technically, would be give them a description of your car. They do have a description of your car and your license plate in their app. However, in Tennessee, we're not required to have tags on the front of our vehicles. So they would have to be coming up from behind us or actually go around the back to make sure of the tag number. So if you kind of like turn your flashers on, if you're talking to them on the phone, tell them, hey, I'm in a black Highlander, I've got my flashers on, I'm right beside this, I'm right behind a cab, I'm whatever. Just give them as much description as you can, because most of the time the people that you're picking up on Broadway are going to be a little intoxicated. So it may take them a little bit longer to find you, maybe them to grasp what you're saying. So anyway, if anybody has any questions, please let me know below. And if you're thinking about signing up for Uber and or Lyft, please use my links below. And if you want to just ride and you're just kind of trying to look at the driver's side of things, and you just happen to be on here, want to ride with Lyft, there's a $15 code in my link in my description. So please like, subscribe, and share my videos if you like it. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. Just so you know, I will probably moderate the comments, just because if there's any trolls out there or anything. Anyway, so you guys have a great weekend, and I hope you have a safe and happy weekend. Enjoy some time in this weather. Actually, it's a little bit bad weather right now, but it'll be better later. Anyway, signing off for now. I may post a little bit more videos later if I think of something that seems relevant. So have a great weekend, guys.